I'd like to cut to the chase again by exploring the Pareto principle in connection to my life and how I made significant improvements to it. So, as I mentioned in the very first video which I posted on this channel, a very significant person in my life died, and that made me reorganize my entire life and made me think truly about things that will move me forward and that will allow me to continue to live with hope and even happiness. So I had to take a very critical look at how I could revive the eternal optimist you see in front of you in order to be able to live again and to be a good parent to my children and an inspiration to the people around me. So I unintentionally, without realizing it, well, not fully realizing it, let's say, the Pareto principle at the time was not at the forefront of my mind. I did an exercise in analyzing the people in my life, the goals in my life, and the activities which I'm doing on a routine basis, right? So it's very reminiscent of people, processes, and product in the first project-oriented video I published about the Pareto principle. So what did I do? I basically looked at all the activities that would be processes, probably, if we search for an equivalent for the project management sort of terminology. I analyzed most of the activities that I do on a routine basis and tried to understand, which ones were the ones that bring me happiness. And I actually put down the activities and the estimated amount of happiness that these activities bring me. Then I realized, an eye-opening discovery, that I only spend about 20 to 30% on those activities, and most of the time is filled with all sorts of things that not really bringing me happiness or fulfillment. So I cut down on those as much as possible, and that helped me tremendously. Now, in terms of people, I couldn't put this down on paper because, simply it would feel too reductionist. But I did this exercise in my mind. I basically thought about the people who are draining my resources in an emotional way, mostly, not financial or cognitive or any other way, but people who are most draining emotionally, people who are the destroyer of dreams, I call them, the ones who would always discourage you and say, oh yeah, I don't think you can do that, that's too risky, or I don't think you should attempt this will not have any financial value. People who have been discouraged themselves are usually the ones who are the most eager to destroy your dreams as well. And since my dreams have become so fragile in the past couple of years, and my hope has become a lot more fragile than it used to be, I have become very protective of my dreams and my hopes by limiting the association I have with toxic and draining people in my life. While trying to reduce the amount of time I spent with people who drain my energy, I usually found myself between a rock and a hard place. What does this phrase mean? When there is no easy way out or a good solution, that's when we say that we find ourselves between a rock and a hard place. Whatever we do, whichever option we choose, the outcome will not be ideal, and I'll explain why. First of all, because I'm a people-oriented person and I truly enjoy the diversity of association. Even sometimes the negative one brings out some good life lessons for me. But the main reason why I found myself between a rock and a hard place is because a lot of these people who are draining my energy are extended family, and you can't really exclude extended family from your circle. So it's a hard choice whether you protect your optimism, the optimist, the eternal optimist in you, or you decide to go on through that cold shower on a regular basis. One way or another, we find ourselves between a rock and a hard place when it comes to choosing what is value versus non-value bringing in relationships, right? Now, regarding the third aspect, and instead of product and people, processes, and product, I will choose something a little bit more ethereal, still related to product, right? Product is a dream come true. So I will talk about goals. I'm a pathological goal setter, and I'm assuming you are too, or might be to some extent. But until recently, I never really sat down to ask myself which goals are truly bringing value into my life. So now, recently, I sat down and I decided to use again a project management reminiscent, let's say, activity. I decided to go through the exercise of planning, implementing, and then monitoring and reviewing my goals. So the planning is obvious, right? We have a plan and we write down when we had the original inception idea. Then once it's implemented, we write down the date again when we did it, when we managed to accomplish it. And then the feedback, or the monitoring and controlling phase of project management. That's the reviews, the testing of whatever implementation we did of our goal. And again, when we receive that feedback, be it professionally or personally, we write it down. And by looking at these three columns and the dates, you can see that you can calculate basically the time between planning and implementation of one of your goals. And then again, the time between implementation and feedback. And time is money, right? Depending on whatever you value as 1 hour of your day, you can multiply the number of days by the amount of money you estimate you would earn during that one day. So after doing this a couple of times, I realized that professionally and personally, if I have a goal which is tangible and clearly defined, that's why planning is important, I can implement it within 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, the duration of a Scrum sprint. And that's very cool. It gives me that hope and the inspiration to move forward and to implement more of my goals in life incrementally, very small steps, but it works. You can prioritize your goals by feasibility, implementation time, or just by the amount of happiness and fulfillment that it will bring you. And that's up to you to estimate. Use your inner optimist, your inner pessimist, and your observer, the most likely, the most neutral of them all, to give an estimate which is more or less accurate and which makes sense to you. And while prioritizing, you'll probably figure out that the implementation time for some of your goals is really long. It might take 6 months, a year, 5 years. So this is where you should break down that goal into smaller, more tangible tasks, the way we do in Agile. You have epics and features and stories, and then stories are broken down into tasks, something which is manageable within a 2-week frame, right? And this is what I did when I passed the PMP exam, and this is the topic of my next video, passing the PMP with flying colors. How did I accomplish that? I want to talk about that a little bit, because it was a goal that took several months but which I was able to break down into small increments and achieve little by little. Well, it had its hurdles. I'll tell you all about it in the next video, but it was an exciting journey and I learned quite a bit from it. So look out for the next video, which is going to be about the PMP exam, the project management exam, which is organized by the PMI, the Project Management Institute in the United States.